Hi, everyone. You have completed project one, your set of instructions. So we are moving on to project two. This technically encompasses your proposal and your final report. And sometimes a bit of confusion about what those things are. So your final report is essentially an idea that you're proposing, but with more support and more research. For proposal, think of it like what you did for your brainstorming of your set of instructions. You kind of set up what you think you want to do your project on, and you sketch it out in less detail, if you will. So I'm going to walk you through what I use for students when I'm having them select persuasive speeches, because I think this is similar in scope. So as you think about proposal topics, that is always, as with any project you're assigned in school, what's my topic going to be? It's one of the hardest decisions we make because everything hinges on that. And in order to pick your proposal topic, which is eventually going to become your final report and what you do your final or oral presentation on, I want you to think about things that are important to you or that have affected you. And so I always start with things that are part of my own identity. And so, for example, I am a teacher, a wife, a woman, a US citizen, a daughter, and a friend. So, if I wanted to focus on part of my identity, the one that I think I see myself as and the world sees me as first, maybe, is my identity as a woman. And so, this is how I started to think about topics of concern for me as someone who identifies as a woman, and things that I feel should be changed or done something about. So one of the issues that I might be interested in pursuing as a instructor and a woman, and having taken classes like this in college when I was an undergrad, would be petitioning to create a women's studies type of course here at Western. And so, in order to do that, I would need to look at the class offerings that we already have. I know we have classes in sociology and ethics and psychology, but none of them are specifically for women's studies. And so, I'd have to start gathering some information about um, who who would be interested, what would be the enrollment probability, what that class would entail, where we would slot it, if programs would want to have students take it, and then I would have to decide if that is a good proposal topic or not. Um, I also have had students, just as I look at this, and one that I probably will reference at some point in showing you an example is I had a student who was an employee of one of our local hospitals and was also a woman. And she decided, because of those two identities, she was going to propose that they increase the education level of employees when they are inserting and removing intrauterine devices or IUDs, partially because she had had one and found it quite painful, and that she had friends who had a similar experience. And because she worked in the hospital, knew that she could possibly have some influence over how that training and education was managed at the hospital. And so she found kind of this sweet spot of, okay, this is something that's personally affected me. It is something that I could propose to my employer that they consider. And because of her role as an employee at the hospital, she was able to send out a survey and got something like 300 responses, which is amazing. And she was able to use that for part of her research to justify her proposal. Now, you don't necessarily have to create a survey of 300 people, but I want you to think again, things that can be done within the scope of your own personal life, your career life, your student life. So, what are some things that you would like to see done? What are some fixes that you think need to happen to improve your life, the lives of others, the lives of people that you care about? So, that's identity. The other one that you can start to think about is specific categories. So, a topic that is related to your future career or college major. So, something that we've talked about at Western is the idea of homework and the idea of the traditional grading system, an A to F grading system. We have done research on the benefits and the disadvantages of those things. I know that there are countries that have gotten completely rid of homework for people in K-12 anyway. So it would be something maybe I would pursue as an interest in my career. You could pursue things about social, environmental, or political issues. So we need to give more space to endangered wildlife, more funding. We need to request that all of our local grocery stores remove their plastic bags. I live in La Crosse. Bike lanes have been a big deal. There have been some futile attempts at bike lanes on Cass Street, which are frustrating. People have strong feelings about roundabouts. So are there things that you're seeing in your community that need to be done? I believe I had a student a couple years ago who did one on the potholes that were in our community, the road conditions, how they are bad for our cars, how they're unsafe for driving, and why we need to allocate more money locally to fixing our roads. And then you could think about hobbies or interests. So for instance, I love to read. Which pieces of literature are classic? Who decides? Which pieces should students be required to read? Are there things that we should remove from the literary canon? That is one that affects me as a literary teacher. But another one is I have 3 cats. One of my cats is declawed, the other 2 aren't. There is a large percentage of countries around the world that have completely outlawed declawing. We still allow it in the United States, although there are some vets who still perform it. So maybe you go to a vet clinic, you have a cat, and you're like, I think you should stop offering declawing services for cats. That could be a proposal. And then you could look at real problems or obstacles from your own life. So things that you've encountered that you've found to be frustrating, an issue. Filling out the FAFSA, student loans, doing your taxes, all of these things affect us who have been to college or in college. Are there things that you see in the system that you think need changing? Have people in your life had to go through things that that baffles your mind why they're having to do any of these things? Now, obviously, when I talk about these picking better categories, they are leaning more persuasively. They're leaning more towards topics that are not necessarily controversial, but there's a problem and here's a solution. And I find that's usually a good way to approach issues that you have in life and connect a homework topic to something that you feel is valuable to you. Though there are some of you in this class who have kids, Western just started offering some daycare for our students. We used to have it went away, and now it's back. But there are many, I've had students who have gotten new jobs. They're single parents, they have a kid, the kid gets sick, and their employer policy is you can't be sick in the first 30 days. Well, that's not really fair to people who are the sole provider of their child's care. And if they don't have somebody that they can drop them off at, and daycares won't take sick kids, you can see how that becomes a problem. And it becomes something that makes it hard for a person to hold down a job. So there might be things that you've encountered in your journey, whether that's work or school or some kind of hobby, that you want to have us focus on. So think about your personal identities, think about things like your career, your social life, the environment, politics, hobbies or interests, or real problems from your own life or the lives of people that you know. That's a good way to start thinking about topic proposals. And remember, the proposal is just kind of like the rough sketch of what you think you want to do. You haven't done a lot of research yet. You think that this is a problem. You think you have a solution, and here's how you're going to propose it to your audience. Whereas the final report is, it's more complete. I have evidence. Here's what I'm suggesting the solution is. And you want to be able to present it to a real audience. So if I were going back to the idea of pitching a women's studies class, I would have to propose it to my dean first, because she is the one who oversees our department. And then it would go up the chain to the vice president of academic affairs. And then we'd have to submit it to the Western Wisconsin school system for approval. So there's many steps, but who would be my first audience? It would be my dean. So think about topics that you care about, things that have personally affected you, things that might have a solution that you think would help, not maybe fix the problem, but would lessen the issue or make it more manageable, and think about who you could address your proposal to. Because in the end, for your final report, you will be writing to a specific audience. So think about those things as you start pondering what you want to do this final report on. The final report, the proposal, final report, and oral presentation are what are going to make up the rest of the end of our course together. So it is a big one. I want you to pick one that you care about, one that you can sustain interest and passion for through the end of our 7 weeks together. And hopefully that helped. I will post more examples from previous students as we get closer into this, but wanted to give you a snapshot of what this is about. All right, take care. Talk soon.